So our next speaker is Mustapha. He's a senior analyst at Space in Africa, and he will tell us more about African new space ecosystem, how it's developed in Africa, and what would be the future, right? So please go ahead. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Alex. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
We do. Please go ahead.
All right. So hello, everyone. Thank you for, inviting me to this platform to share what is happening on the African scene. So my name is Mustapha Iderawumi. I'm a senior analyst at Space in Africa. And over the next 10 minutes, I'll just run you through the status of the African new space ecosystem. So, commercial space, new space. So the first thing I would like to talk about is just, a brief summary of what it looks like in Africa. So based on our research dated this month, we have about 483 new space companies in Africa. And these companies are the ones that are charting the cost for space democratization on the continent. But then you have most of these companies, they are domiciled in 37 African countries with varying degrees. So you have more of them populated in some other region than some. But the fundamental thing is that most of these companies rather, they provide goods and services using different models. So some of them provide services directly to other customers in B2C model, some to other businesses in B2B, and sometimes they also provide to the government. And we have also seen some companies that are able to to fuse one or more of these models to provide to one or two entities together, or even sometimes to all the entities. So they have a different arm that provides directly to the government. They also have maybe like a specific arm that provides to the consumers directly and also for businesses. So while I was talking the other time, I was talking about the varying degrees of these companies across the continent. So you can see from this map that South Africa has like the largest number of companies. They have 124. Next up, you have Nigeria and Kenya with 64 companies each. Then you also have other countries like, Ghana, like Egypt, having like a significant amount of companies in their region. Then you have like, spread of the other companies across the other regions. So when you look at the funding periods, it's very important to explore this so that you can see what the trend has been in the past couple of decades. So when you look at the chart on my right now, you would see the pictorial representation of how the companies are being established. And you can see the surge as it moved from when it started to where we have now. And the point is now that more people are more open to what they can do with space in terms of sustainable development. And we are going to see more companies established, more companies expanding into other regions and, more space democratization in the future. So when we talk about the funding landscape, it's a little bit different from what we have in the US or UK, or maybe even in China. So most of the African companies, they bootstrap, meaning, they use, they are self-funded, and sometimes they use money that they gain from selling their services to run their business. So the chart here will show you briefly what the landscape looks like in terms of funding in the African space ecosystem. So you can see the majority of the companies are bootstrapping, and just like Davis Cook mentioned the other time, we have a couple of companies that have been able to receive funding, and we have like increasing number of them in the last decade. And that also shows like a visible trend. Okay, as time goes on, we are going to have more investors being open to partnering with African companies to ensure that they can bolster their services across the continent. So another thing that I would like to talk about briefly is like the industry classification. So you might be interested to know, okay, what do these companies do exactly, and where are they plying their trade? So basically, the space ecosystem is divided into two. So you have the upstream and the downstream. To put it mildly, the upstream segments are those companies that provide like the critical infrastructures, I mean the hardware, that the downstream segment now uses to provide services and solutions and whatnot. And in terms of like the critical services that these companies, in terms of their services, we've broadly classified them into six. So you have those that are doing astronomy related stuff. You have those that are capacity development, trainings, human capital development and all that. You have those that are doing Earth observation related services, geospatial application, agri-tech and all that. Then you have those that are in manufacturing, that are producing, satellite components, cameras, IoT devices, and all that. Then we have those in satellite communication, providing fixed and mobile satellite services. Then you also have satellite navigation. So, and this chart also shows you, the distribution of those companies across the services that they provide. And this part here shows you where they sell their market to. So who are their target market? For some of them, they focus on just their national market. That means they provide services only to their country which they operate in. For some of them, they're able to scale up and they are able to provide services to people in their region. So say a country like Nigeria, a company operating in Nigeria would be able to provide services to other West African states. Then you have companies that have been able to scale up their business relatively well, and they're able to sell their services to the entire continent. While you have a cluster of companies also that are able to sell their companies globally. So let me just do a brief overview of the new space segment too. I was talking about this the other time, but just to give you more, let's beef it up a little bit. For each of those industries that I mentioned the other time, we have also been able to like subdivide the classes so that you can know exactly what these people are doing under each of those classifications. So let me start from the smallest one. So you have the satellite component manufacturing industry. So you have predominantly all the companies in that segment doing satellite systems and component manufacturing. Then we also have a couple of them that are into propulsion systems and also telescope mechanical and control systems. And that's the classification. Because of time, I might not be able to like run through all of them, but these are the classification of those companies across those segments. And these are some of the challenges that we've seen over time that some of these companies are facing. A lot of them are not able to, expand their business rapidly as they would like to, which is tied to access to funding. Because with more funding, you're able to expand the scope of your business, you're able to, do a lot more research and all that. So those two challenges are really tied together. Then you also have talent and skill gap. It's also very important that like some of these services, they are very nuanced and they are very, it's not every time that you can find people that can actually take charge of those programs. But it's getting better now, and we have like a lot of people also doing a lot of capacity development initiatives, which is making that relatively better than it was a decade or 2 decades ago. So some of the challenges are the ease of setting up and maintaining space business. We also have like political policies and legislation issues across countries, which is different as you move from country to country. So you also have a couple of companies that are sort of like duplicating solutions, basically. So it makes it really hard for most of them to scale because they are generally doing the same thing without being like, a little bit of additive element that makes it stand out from each other. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I can take them later.
Thank you so much, Mustapha, for your presentation. Actually, yes, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you a small question about the data. So you just provided the numbers of companies. Are they core space companies, or are they like space-related companies, dual, and so on and so forth?
So they are core space companies. So if you are to add like other companies that are doing related services, for example, in satellite communication, if you want to do related services, you'd then add ISPs. I don't know if you are familiar with them, but then that number runs into thousands in Africa. So these numbers that I quoted here, they are main companies that are doing strictly space-related stuff in Africa. Does that answer your
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Mustapha, thank you so much.